Much Ado About Nothing. In the kingdom of Messina, there were two ladies whose names were Hero and Beatrice. Hero was the daughter of Leonato, the governor of Messina, and Beatrice was his niece. Beatrice was a very intelligent, lively, and amusing person. Hero was very serious, and Beatrice liked to make her laugh. Beatrice found almost everything funny. At this time, some army men came to visit Leonato. These soldiers had just returned from a war. One of these men was Don Pedro, the Prince of Aragon. With them was his friend Claudio, who was a lord of Florence. There was also Benedick, lord of Padua. Benedick was very much like Beatrice. He was always telling jokes and laughing at things. These men had been to Messina before, and they already knew Leonato and the two women. Benedick immediately began a conversation with Leonato and Don Pedro, but Beatrice, who liked to speak in every conversation, interrupted them. She said, "I am surprised you are still talking, Master Benedick. No one listens to you." Benedick had met Beatrice before. He did not like her very much. He thought that girls like Beatrice should be quiet and sweet. It is always true that people who tease others never like to be teased themselves. Beatrice and Benedick were always insulting and making fun of each other. Benedick waited a moment before turning around and saying,
"Oh, my dear Lady Beatrice, are you still living?"
Then the two began to argue. Beatrice was very smart, and she knew how to make Benedick angry. Meanwhile, Beatrice's cousin Hero sat quietly nearby. Claudio watched Hero. He thought how beautiful she was. Don Pedro, the Prince of Aragon, watched Beatrice and Benedick. He thought their fighting was funny.
"Beatrice is a very fine, amusing young lady. She would make a good wife for Benedick,"
he said to Leonato.
"Oh no, my lord. If those two ever were married, they would kill each other,"
said Leonato. But the prince was not so sure. He wanted Beatrice and Benedick to be together. They were very similar. The prince soon discovered that his friend Claudio wanted to marry Hero. The prince thought this was a very good idea, as Claudio was a good and noble man. Leonato agreed to let Claudio marry his daughter. When the gentle Hero heard Claudio's words of love, she was extremely happy. The kind prince persuaded Leonato to let his friend and Hero marry as soon as possible. Claudio had to wait a little while before he and Hero could marry. He was very impatient and bored during this time. So, to entertain Claudio, the prince suggested something to pass the time.
"We should make Beatrice and Benedick fall in love,"
he said. Claudio thought this was an excellent idea. When Leonato and his daughter Hero heard the idea, they also wanted to help. "I would do anything to help my cousin find a husband," said Hero sweetly. The prince came up with this plan. The men would make Benedick believe that Beatrice loved him. Meanwhile, Hero would make Beatrice believe that Benedick loved her. The men began their plan first. They found Benedick quietly reading a book in the garden. The prince and his friends hid behind some trees nearby. They were careful not to let Benedick see them. However, he could certainly hear them. After some ordinary conversation, the prince said loudly,
"So, Leonato, didn't you tell me the other day that your niece, Beatrice, was in love with Benedick? I never thought that lady would love any man." "I didn't think so either, my lord,"
said Leonato.
"Isn't it amazing? She acts as if she doesn't like Benedick, but really she loves him dearly. My sweet hero told me that Beatrice was so in love with Benedick that she would die of sadness if he didn't return her love,"
said Claudio.
"But sadly that's impossible. Benedick really doesn't like my niece. He thinks that good ladies shouldn't be so impolite,"
said Leonardo. The prince pretended to feel sorry for Beatrice.
"We should tell Benedick immediately,"
he said.
"Why?"
asked Claudio.
"If Benedick hears about it, he'll only make fun of poor Beatrice." "Well, if he does that, then we should hang him,"
said the prince, pretending to be angry.
"Beatrice is an excellent lady. She is extremely wise in everything but her love for Benedick."
Then the prince whispered to his friends that they should leave. Benedick would want to think about what he had heard. Benedick had been listening to his friends with much interest. He was amazed.
"Is it possible? Can that lady really love me?"
he asked himself.
"Yes, it must be true. They were very serious, and Hero told them it was true. She loves me. Well, I always thought I would die unmarried, but I never thought I'd live to find a wife. They say that Beatrice is wise and beautiful. She is wise in everything, but her love for me."
Then Benedick saw Beatrice walking towards him.
"But here she comes. She does look like a lady in love,"
he said. When Beatrice was near him, she said, "Well, Sir Benedick, I didn't want to come here, but my uncle told me to find you and bring you to dinner."
"Fair Beatrice, I thank you for your time,"
said Benedick politely. After saying some more unkind things, Beatrice left him. However, Benedick thought that she seemed a little nicer to him than before.
"If I do not take pity on her, I am a villain. If I do not love her, I am a Jew."
Now it was Hero's turn to talk to Beatrice. She had two other ladies, Ursula and Margaret, to help her. These were her servants. Hero said to Margaret, "Good Margaret, go and find my cousin Beatrice. She is talking with the prince and Claudio. Tell her that you heard Ursula and I talking about her in the garden." This was the exact same place where Benedick had heard the men's conversation. After Margaret left, Hero and Ursula went into the garden. Hero said, "Now, Ursula, when Beatrice comes, we must only talk about Benedick. Whenever I mention him, you must praise him. I will tell you about how Benedick is in love with Beatrice. Now, here comes Beatrice to listen to our talk." Ursula and Hero walked up and down and began their conversation. They pretended not to see Beatrice. Hero said, "But Ursula, Beatrice is too unkind to Benedick. She thinks he is stupid." "Are you sure, Lady Hero, that Benedick loves Beatrice so much?" asked Ursula. "The prince says it is true. My Lord Claudio also. They wanted me to tell Beatrice, but I told them I wouldn't. If they loved Benedick, they should never let Beatrice know the truth," said Hero. "Oh, of course," said Ursula. "Lady Beatrice shouldn't find out. She might laugh at poor Benedick." "Truthfully, no matter how wise or handsome a man is, my cousin will dislike him," said Hero. "It's not a very nice way to act, is it?" said Ursula. "No," said Hero sadly, "but if I told her, she would only laugh at me." "Oh no," said Ursula. "Beatrice cannot be as unkind as that. She couldn't refuse a fine man like Benedick." "Benedick is the best man in Italy, except for my dear Claudio," said Hero. Now we should change the conversation, she whispered to Ursula. So tell me, Lady Hero, when are you going to be married? Ursula asked. Hero told Ursula that she and Claudio were getting married the next day. Come inside with me, Ursula. I must decide what I am going to wear, said Hero. After Hero and Ursula had gone, Beatrice was very excited. Can this be true? Benedict, do you love me? Then I regret my bad treatment of you. Love on. Now it must have been pleasant to see these enemies turned into lovers. It would be fun to see their first meeting, after being tricked into liking each other by their friends. But now we must hear about Hero. The next day was supposed to be her wedding day, but something terrible happened. The prince had a half-brother who had also come to Messina. This man was named Don John. He was an unhappy, angry, evil man. He hated his brother, Prince Don Pedro. Don John also hated Claudio, because he was the prince's friend. When Don John found out about Claudio and Hero's wedding plans, he decided to prevent them. He only wanted to make Claudio and the prince unhappy. It was the night before the wedding. Don John hired a man named Borachio to help him. He promised to pay Borachio a lot of money. At that time, this Borachio paid his court to Margaret, Hero's servant. Don John told Borachio to persuade Margaret to talk to him with Hero's clothing on late that night. Don John waited for a while, and then went to Claudio and the prince.
I am afraid I have some bad news,
he told them.
Claudio, I have seen your lady Hero talking to another man in the dark. She is a terrible girl. Come and see.
Claudio was upset.
If this is true, then I will never speak to Hero again. Yes, and I will tell the whole world what a terrible woman she is,
said the prince. When Don John, the prince, and Claudio went outside, they saw Borachio standing under Hero's window. Margaret, in Hero's clothing, was leaning out of the window, talking to him. So Claudio thought it was Hero herself.
Well, it is true,
said Claudio. Now, all his love for the innocent Hero had turned into hatred.
At the wedding tomorrow, I will tell everyone what I saw.
The next day, everyone met to celebrate the marriage. Hero and Claudio were standing in front of the priest. Suddenly, Claudio angrily told everyone what he had seen. Of course, Hero didn't know what he was talking about. Are you well, sir? She asked. Leonardo was very upset.
My lord, you must say something,
he cried to the prince.
What can I say?
Said the prince.
Leonardo, I promise you that I saw Hero talking to another man last night. So did Claudio and my brother Don John. Now I am sorry I wanted Claudio to marry Hero.
Benedict said in amazement.
This does not look like a wedding.
True. Oh, God! Cried Hero. Then she fainted. She looked dead. The prince and Claudio left the church. They didn't even stay to see if Hero was all right. They also didn't care about Leonardo's feelings. They were so angry. Benedict stayed to help Beatrice with Hero.
How is she?
He asked Beatrice. I think she's dead, cried Beatrice. She loved her cousin and didn't believe Don John's story. Unfortunately, poor Leonardo did.
I hope she is dead. My daughter has dishonored me,
he cried. However, there was one man who believed Hero was innocent. This was the church priest. He had seen Hero's reaction to Claudio's angry words. He knew Hero very well. And he said to Leonardo,
"Sir, you must believe me. Your daughter is innocent. She could not do what these men said she did."
When Hero woke up, she said, "Father, if you can prove that I spoke with another man, then torture me, hate me, but I promise you I'm innocent." The priest said,
"I believe that the prince and Claudio have made a mistake."
Then he said to Leonardo,
"Here is what you must do. Pretend that Hero is dead. You must prepare for a funeral and act very sad. Beatrice and Benedict, you must do the same. When Claudio hears of Hero's death, he will feel sorry for her. Then he will feel terrible that he accused her. Even if he thought Hero was guilty, he will still believe he caused her death."
Benedict now said,
"Leonardo, I think the priest is right. Even though Claudio and the prince are my friends, I will not tell them the secret."
Leonardo agreed to this plan. The kind priest then took Leonardo and Hero away. Beatrice and Benedict were alone. Benedict was the first to speak.
"Lady Beatrice, have you cried all this time?"
He asked.
"I believe that Hero is telling the truth."
"Oh, I would love the man who could prove my cousin's innocence," cried Beatrice passionately. She was extremely angry. Benedict then said,
"Is there any way I could help? For it is true that I love no one more than you, Beatrice. Isn't that strange?"
"It is just as strange as my saying I love you," said Beatrice. "I will say nothing, but I'll deny nothing. Right now I am worried about my cousin."
"So you love me and I love you,"
said Benedict.
"Come, I will do anything for you."
"Kill Claudio," said Beatrice coldly.
"Huh, I would never do that,"
said Benedict. He loved his friend Claudio and believed that Claudio had somehow been tricked. "How can you say that? Claudio has been terribly cruel to my innocent cousin. I thought he loved her, but he has dishonored her," cried Beatrice. "Oh, I wish I were a man. I'd kill him this minute."
"Listen to me, Beatrice,"
cried Benedict. But Beatrice would not listen. She didn't want to hear any defense of Claudio. "Sweet Hero has been lied about and dishonored. Oh, if only I were a man for Hero's sake, or if I had any friend who would be a man for my sake. But I cannot become a man, and I can't do anything. So I must die of grief."
"Listen, Beatrice. Do you really feel that Claudio has wronged Hero?"
Benedict asked seriously. "Yes, I am sure of it," said Beatrice.
"Then I will fight Claudio for you and Hero. Now I will kiss your hand and leave you. Go and be with your cousin,"
said Benedict. While Beatrice and Benedict were having this conversation, Leonardo was talking to the prince and Claudio.
"You must pay for what you did to my child. She has died of grief,"
he shouted at them. Leonardo took out his sword to fight them. But the prince and Claudio respected the old man and said,
"No, do not fight with us, good Leonardo. It is over."
But just then Benedict ran into the room. He challenged Claudio to a fight for Hero's honor.
"Beatrice has asked him to do this,"
thought Claudio and the prince. Claudio and Benedict would have fought each other. Certainly one man would have died. But just then, something wonderful happened. A servant of Leonardo's entered the room bringing a prisoner. It was Borachio. Borachio had been discovered talking about his and Don John's actions. Borachio told Leonardo, the prince, and Claudio the whole story. They learned that it was Margaret talking to Borachio, not Hero. If the three men had any doubt, they soon learned that Don John had run away from Messina. Claudio's heart was in pain when he learned the truth. He believed that Hero had died of grief after hearing his cruel words. His mind was filled with memories of Hero.
"How do you feel?"
the prince asked Claudio.
"I feel as if I had taken poison,"
cried Claudio. Then Claudio told Leonardo how sorry he was.
"I will take any punishment you give me for dear Hero's sake,"
he said.
"All right. Tomorrow you will marry another cousin of Hero's. Now that Hero is dead, this lady will be my heir, and she is very much like Hero,"
said Leonardo sternly. Claudio agreed.
"I will marry this lady, even if she is a monster,"
he said. Claudio spent that night lying in front of Hero's false grave. The next morning, the prince and Claudio went to the church. The priest, Leonardo, and the mysterious niece were there. This lady wore a mask over her face. Claudio said to the lady in the mask,
"Give me your hand, lady. I am your husband if you will marry me."
"When I lived, I was your other wife," said the lady, and took off her mask. We can imagine Claudio's surprise when he found that this was Hero herself. Claudio could not believe his eyes. He cried out in joy.
"Is this Hero? Hero who died?"
the prince asked Leonato.
"She was dead, good prince, but only while the lies told about her were alive,"
said Leonardo. The priest promised to explain the whole story to everyone after the wedding. But just then, Benedict interrupted.
"I want to marry Beatrice at the same time,"
he said. Beatrice was not so sure.
"You love me, don't you?"
Benedict challenged her. Then Beatrice and Benedict learned how they had been tricked into loving each other. But now, the love between them was real. Benedict still wanted to marry Beatrice. He said cheerfully,
"Well, Lady Beatrice, I suppose I will have to marry you. If I don't, my friends tell me you will die of grief."
Beatrice said something equally as amusing. And so these two lovers were also married, the same day as Claudio and Hero. As for Don John, the creator of all the problems, he was soon captured and brought back to Messina. It was a punishment for this terrible man to see the four lovers' joy and celebrations in the palace of Messina on that fine day